Hi learners, today we are going to learn one of the most important idea concerning time management. The basis of this concept is that all activities that we do can be characterized into four types based on two criteria. The two criteria being urgency and importance. The level of urgency, which is determined by time pressure factor, divides the actions either to be urgent or not urgent. The level of importance bifurcates the activities into important activities and not important activities. This led the college professor who suggested this concept to come up with a matrix called the time management matrix. And this matrix, as you can see, these two criteria enable it to be divided into four quadrants. Quadrant 1, when there is where all the urgent and important activities are classified. Quadrant 2, where important activities but not urgent. Such activities can be classified under quadrant 2. And all the activities which are not important yet urgent are classified in quadrant 3. And quadrant 4 has a list of activities which are not important and not urgent. As you can see, every crisis or pressing problems are all a part of quadrant 1. And all kinds of planning, recreation, hobbies, passion, relationship building are a part of quadrant 2, which are important but not urgent. There are certain activities which have the call of urgency but are not important. Some of the examples being the telephones, the telephone calls, the mails, the reports, meetings, etc. And the fourth quadrant has a list of activities like which are not important and not urgent, like time wasters, trivia things, addiction to mobile, and so on. What would happen if we spend most of the time in any one of these quadrants is what we will see now. Dominance of quadrant 1 activities would result in stress, burnout, crisis management, and always putting out fires. It would be a frustrated lifestyle. However, if we spend the entire time of a day in doing activities of quadrant 2, which are important but do not have the sense of urgency in them, it would result in a life led with a vision and perspective, a balanced life, a disciplined life, control, and a very few crises because we are not doing quadrant 1 activities there. If most of the activities that we do in a day are urgent but not important, at the end of the day, we end up being very badly focused. We would be very bad at crisis management, and we will be called as a chameleon character, and we will see our own goals and plans as worthless and therefore life not worth living. We feel victimized, out of control, shallow, and it might also lead to broken relationships. Quadrant 4 activities which are not important, not urgent, are not even worth talking about. But if we end up doing those activities throughout the day, it would result in total irresponsibility, fired from jobs, depend on others or institutions for even basic things, because the entire day has been a worthless living. And based on these kind of effect that each quadrant activities have on us, the dominance of each quadrant have on us, we can call each quadrant with a name. The first quadrant where all the activities or the activities of urgency or importance are done, it's called the quadrant of necessity. However, the second quadrant can be called a quadrant or a life of quality. And the third quadrant where there is always the sense of urgency, although it's not important, we are being deceived, and therefore it's called the quadrant of deception. And quadrant 4 where we tend to or get attracted to use most of our times in is actually a waste quadrant. So how do we manage our time? Quadrant 1 has a list of activities which are important and urgent, and therefore they have to be managed. When you plan for a day, you need to make sure that you complete the quadrant 1 activities. And quadrant 2 is actually the quality of your life, the way you lead your life, how well you are as a leader unto thyself. And this is a quadrant which can be managed when you focus more here. The planning of your life, of a future, of a day is more productive when you give a lot of time to quadrant 2, or when you pre-plan or when you plan for quadrant 2 and give enough time for quadrant 1 activities to be done as well. Quadrant 1 activities are sometimes unexpected, therefore we need to manage to do them. However, our planning should be more focused on quadrant 2. But sometimes quadrant 2 activities tend to move on to quadrant 1 because we haven't planned for them well. And then comes quadrant 3. The strategy that we can employ for quadrant 3 is we need to be very careful in whether we need to do it or not. As long as they're not important to us, it's better we avoid. So the strategy that we can employ to effectively manage our time is to make sure that we avoid doing quadrant 3 activities. And quadrant 4 is a waste, and therefore, though at times we cannot just overlook these activities, we need to have self control and try to make sure that we trash these activities and make it, if it can be done used productively, it could turn out to be a quadrant 2 activity and never bring it down to quadrant 4 activity. So in all, it's not that we can save time or pull time, but we can, whatever time that we have, we can actually make sure that we manage the time that is available to us. Time and tide wait for none, but we can always manage the time that is available to us by proper planning and knowing the activities that have to be done by us and that can be avoided by us, that have to be managed by us, and those activities which we need to be planning for and ensure for a quality leadership living.